Wildlife Conservation Society Canada's Bat Conservation Program is aimed largely at preparing the West for the arrival of white nose syndrome, which is a fungal disease that kills bats.
Bats at Cadman Cave are currently doing really well, and one of the concerns is that if white nose syndrome is introduced to that cave, that we could see a die-off of almost the entire cave population.
To save bats is going to require all hands on deck. We have the Alberta Community Bat Program that does outreach and education to the public. We are strategically locating bat hibernacula through the Bat Caver program, engaging cavers to help us identify caves and mines that have bats. And research programs such as the one that we're doing at Cadman Cave to understand the susceptibility of western bat species to the white nose syndrome fungus. And all of this requires strategic partnerships, including key collaborators like Alberta Environment and Parks.
Right now, the government of Alberta is trying to do several things in anticipation of when white nose inevitably is going to get here. One of the things we're doing is improving our monitoring so we can learn more about our bats. There's still some species we don't know much about where they like to roost, especially where the females have their pups, which are maternity colonies. So those are really important to identify and protect, as well as where they winter in those hibernacula, where they're the most vulnerable. So those are things we're trying to do right now, is to improve monitoring. We've got some citizen science that's being really helpful with that to identify these roosts in high priority areas. We're supporting research like the research that's going on in Cadman right now, so we can get a better understanding of how northern bats are going to respond, or their susceptibility to white nose syndrome, which is going to be very informative. The other thing to consider is that hopefully there will be research that turns up some sort of treatment for white nose syndrome. And so that could be in the form of a fungal or bacterial agent that isn't going to be damaging to bats or the cave ecosystem, but will be able to combat the white nose syndrome fungus.
We have a limited amount of time to learn some very strategic things about our bats before white nose arrives. And our motto is to make sure that we do no harm along the way. And so when we are going into hibernacula, for example, we minimize the amount of disturbance that we cause to these bats, because bats are hibernating with a limited amount of fat that has to last through till spring. We also wear latex gloves and disposable overalls or something that we can decontaminate to make sure that we don't accidentally transport the white nose syndrome fungal spores between study sites should it appear somewhere.
In the winter of 2016, white nose syndrome was detected in a bat in the state of Washington, fairly close to Seattle. So that represents a huge continental jump from eastern North America. Surprisingly, there are some documented cases of bats that have been transported in shipping containers, on boats, in log piles, things like that. But that represents a real threat to the spread of white nose syndrome. So that's one of the things that we're trying to grapple with right now, is how can we educate people about that? Even campers who might have an awning on a motorhome that could be very inviting to a bat, roosting there, and then they close it up and they travel away with it. So the stowaway bat issue is a little piece of the puzzle that we're trying to figure out right now through public education.
Anybody wanting more information on bats can contact the Alberta Community Bat Program, it's albertabats.ca, or the Bat Caver Program, which is batcaver.org.